Hello everyone and welcome to my ABCGH Spoilers channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The hospital lights in Port Charles always carried that same sterile hum, a constant reminder that life could shift in an instant. Willow Tait Kane stood in the hallway outside Drew's room. Her arms wrapped tightly around herself as if holding her body together might keep everything else from falling apart. The doctors had called it a massive stroke. Sudden, devastating, the kind that left even the strongest people trapped inside their own bodies. Drew lay inside, eyes sometimes open but unfocused. His once commanding presence reduced to shallow breaths and the occasional twitch of a finger that might have been intentional or just a cruel illusion. Willow had injected him herself, the needle slipping into his neck while they toasted her, a quag still fizzing on her tongue. She had expected consequences, but not this. Not the paralysis that might lock him in forever. Unable to speak the truth of what she'd done, she told herself it was self-preservation. Drew had pushed her too far, manipulated her grief, her loneliness, turned her into someone she barely recognized. But now, staring at the monitors through the glass, guilt coiled tighter than ever. And beneath it all, something else stirred. A secret she hadn't yet shared with anyone, not even Nina, her mother, who hovered nearby with worried eyes. Weeks earlier, before the trial, before the champagne and the needle, Willow had felt the first signs: nausea in the mornings, exhaustion that sleep couldn't touch, a faint tenderness in her breasts that reminded her of carrying Wiley and Amelia. She had taken the test alone in the bathroom of the house she shared with Drew. The two pink lines appearing almost immediately. Pregnant, the father could only be Drew, her husband, her partner in crime and chaos. They had been intimate sporadically, angrily in the haze of their crumbling alliance. No one else had touched her since Michael walked out for good. But the timing haunted her. Michael, her ex-husband, the man who had once been her everything. Their marriage had ended in flames. His affair with Sasha revealed in court. Her own betrayal with Drew laid bare. Michael had fought for sole custody, taking Wiley and Amelia away, leaving Willow hollow. Then the explosion that nearly killed him, the long recovery abroad. His return changed, scarred, quieter. She had nursed old wounds while building new ones with Drew. Now this child grew inside her, a product of that toxic union, while Michael's world had tilted again. The stroke happened on a Tuesday. Willow had come home from the courthouse, verdict still ringing in her ears. Not guilty. Drew had been smug, pouring drinks, talking about their future as if the past could be erased with a signature and a smile. She remembered the way his hand trembled slightly as he raised the glass. How his words began to slur mid-sentence. She had panicked, but not enough to stop. The syringe had been in her pocket, a last resort measure she had prepared, but never truly believed she'd use. One quick motion, and he crumpled. She called for help, played the terrified wife perfectly. Paramedics arrived, lights flashing against the night. At General Hospital, Lucas examined him, face grim. "Massive stroke," he said. "We're watching for locked-in syndrome. He might hear everything, understand everything, but be unable to respond." Willow nodded, tears coming easily. Some real, some performed. Na hugged her. Tracy Quartermain watched with narrowed eyes, sensing something off, but saying nothing. Michael arrived later, drawn by the news that rippled through the family. He looked at Willow across the waiting room, his expression unreadable. They hadn't spoken civilly in months. He had Daisy now, his daughter with Sasha, and custody of their two. Willow had nothing but regrets and this growing life inside her. Days blurred into nights. Willow visited Drew daily, sitting by his bed, talking softly as if he could answer. Sometimes his eyes followed her. A flicker of awareness that sent ice through her veins. Could he know? Could he remember the needle, the betrayal? Doctors said communication might return in blinks, one for yes, two for no, but so far nothing consistent. She brought him flowers, adjusted his pillows, played the devoted spouse while her mind raced. What if he recovered enough to accuse her? What if he didn't and she was left caring for a man she had tried to silence? The pregnancy became impossible to ignore. Morning sickness hit hard, forcing her to excuse herself from rooms. Her clothes felt tighter, her body heavier. She hadn't told Drew. How could she with him like this? She hadn't told anyone. But secrets in poor Charles had a way of surfacing. One afternoon, Willow sat alone in the park near the hospital, the same bench where she and Michael used to bring the kids. The air was crisp, January biting at her cheeks. She placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the faint flutter that might have been imagination or the first real movement. Another child with Drew, the man who had poisoned so much of her life. She thought of Michael, how he had looked when he learned Sasha was pregnant. Shocked, then protective. Would he feel anything if he knew about this? Anger, indifference, pity, footsteps approaching Michael. He had been at the hospital checking on Drew. Family ties, even fractured, still bound them. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said quietly. "I'm fine," her voice cracked. She hadn't expected him. He sat on the far end of the bench, leaving space between them. How is he the same? Locked in maybe forever. Michael nodded. "I'm sorry. For what it's worth." She laughed bitterly. "Are you?" He looked at her, then really looked. "I don't know what to feel anymore, Willow. You lied. You cheated. You almost got me sent away for something I didn't do. But seeing him like that, it's hard." She swallowed. The words rose before she could stop them. "I'm pregnant." The silence stretched. Michael's face went blank, then pale. "Drew's," she nodded. He exhaled slowly. "How far?" "About 10 weeks. It happened before." "Everything." He stared at the ground. "You told him." "He doesn't know." "He can't know." "Not now." Michael rubbed his face. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Tears came then, real ones. "I lost our kids because of him, because of me, and now this. It's like the universe is punishing me." Michael didn't move closer, but he didn't leave either. "You're not alone in that feeling." They sat in silence, the wind rustling leaves. Memories flooded back. Michael's proposal, their wedding, the births of Wiley and Amelia, the leukemia diagnosis that nearly took her, the way he held her through it all, then the fractures, her attraction to Drew, his revenge with Sasha, custody battles, the explosion that scarred him physically and emotionally. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "Even when I hated you." Michael closed his eyes. "I know. That's what makes it hurt more." He stood eventually. "Take care of yourself and the baby." He walked away, leaving her on the bench, hands still on her stomach. Back at the hospital, Willow found Na waiting. Her mother had always seen through her. Even when Willow tried to hide. "You're glowing," Nina said, tilting her head. "Or maybe it's nausea." "Which is it?" Willow hesitated, then told her. Na's eyes widened, then softened. "Oh, honey," they hugged. Na, stroking her hair like when Willow was a child, though they had only recently found each other as mother and daughter. "You'll get through this," Na said. "We all will." But the days continued heavy. Willow nursed Drew as best she could, changing IVs under nurse supervision, reading to him from books he once loved. His eyes tracked her, sometimes accusatory or pleading, she couldn't tell. Guilt aided her. She considered confessing, ending it all, but fear stopped her. Prison would mean losing this child, too. Michael appeared more often, not for Drew, but for her. Small gestures, coffee in the morning, a blanket when she shivered. They talked carefully at first, then deeper about the kids, about regrets, about what might have been. He told her about his recovery abroad, the pain, the loneliness. She told him about the nights she cried herself to sleep after losing custody. One evening, as snow fell outside the hospital windows, Michael found her in the chapel. She was praying, not for forgiveness, but for clarity. He sat beside her. "I think about the baby," he said. "It's not mine, but it's part of this mess we made." She looked at him. "Would you hate it?" "No." His voice was steady. "I could never hate a child." Something shifted then. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a crack in the wall between them. Weeks have passed. Drew showed faint improvement. A blink here, a finger movement there. Doctors were cautiously optimistic. Willow's belly rounded. The pregnancy undeniable now. She wore looser clothes, avoided questions. Then the test results came. Genetic markers, routine checks. The baby was healthy, strong, but the dates. Willow stared at the ultrasound photo, heart pounding. The conception window overlapped with a night she and Michael had argued, then fallen into bed in a storm of anger and old love. It had been once reckless before Drew's hold tightened fully. She confronted the timeline again and again. Drew had been away that month. Congress duties. Michael had come to see the kids. Tempers flared and they ended up together. One night, one mistake or one truth. The father might not be Drew at all. She didn't tell anyone yet. Not Nina, not Michael. She sat with Drew, watching his chest rise and fall, wondering if fate had given her this child as redemption or further punishment. Michael noticed her distraction. "Something's wrong," he said one day in the cafeteria. She looked at him, eyes filling the baby. "It might be yours." His cup slipped, coffee spilling. "What the timing?" "I thought it was Drew, but it could be you." He stared, processing. Then slowly he reached across the table, took her hand. "If it is, well, figure it out." Outside, poor Charles moved on. Crimes, romances, secrets. But in that moment, in the quiet of the hospital, two broken people faced a new possibility. A child conceived in pain, perhaps born in hope. Willow rested her head on Michael's shoulder just for a second, and let herself believe that maybe after all the betrayals and strokes and losses, something good could still come. The road ahead was uncertain. Drew might wake, might accuse, might destroy everything again. Custody battles loomed, families fractured. But the baby kicked, a small reminder that life persisted, stubborn and insistent. Willow closed her eyes, hand on her stomach, Michael's arm around her. For the first time in months, she felt the weight lift just a little. Not gone, but shared. And in Port Charles, that was enough to start again. The hospital room was too quiet for a place that was supposed to save lives. The steady beep of the heart monitor cut through the silence. Each sound sharp enough to make Willow's chest tighten. Michael lay motionless in the bed, his skin pale against the white sheets, his dark lashes resting still against his cheeks. Only hours ago, they had been arguing in the kitchen about schedules, about exhaustion, about the way life never seemed to slow down. Now he was here fighting for his life after a massive stroke. And Willow felt like the ground had vanished beneath her feet. She sat at his bedside, fingers wrapped tightly around his hand, afraid to let go, as if doing so might somehow make his condition worse. The doctors had said the next 24 hours were critical. They'd spoken in careful tones, explaining swelling, damage, uncertainty. Willow nodded along, absorbing none of it. All she could see was Michael, the man she loved, the father of her children, lying helpless and silent. And beneath the terror, beneath the grief threatening to choke her, was another truth pressing down on her with unbearable weight. She was pregnant. Willow had known for less than a week. The nausea that wouldn't go away, the exhaustion that felt different from the usual chaos of motherhood and work. She'd taken the test early one morning while the house was still asleep, staring at the result until her knees gave out and she slid down the bathroom wall. The plastic stick clutched in her shaking hand. Positive. At first, she'd assumed the baby was Michael's. Made sense. They were married. They were trying to rebuild something stable after years of heartbreak and loss. But then the dates crept in, unwelcome and undeniable, and the truth revealed itself with cruel clarity. The baby wasn't Michael's. It was Drew's, her ex, the man she had once believed might be her future, the man she'd sworn she was done with forever. Willow squeezed Michael's hand now, guilt flooding her veins like poison. He didn't know. No one knew. Not yet. And now with him lying here trapped in his own body, she didn't know if he ever would. Across the room, Carly stood with her arms crossed, her expression tight as she watched her son. She'd barely left since the ambulance brought Michael in. Her fierce composure cracked only once when the doctors first explained the severity of the stroke. Since then, she'd been a silent sentinel, eyes constantly on the monitors, as if daring them to change. "How are you holding up?" Carly asked softly, breaking the silence. Willow swallowed hard. "I don't know," she admitted. "I feel like I'm falling apart." Carly stepped closer, resting a hand on Willow's shoulder. "Michael's strong. He's a fighter. He gets that from his father." Willow nodded. Though the words barely registered, she felt like an imposter standing at this bedside. A wife with a secret so big it threatened to swallow everything. Down the hall, Drew stopped just outside the room, unseen by the two women inside. He'd come as soon as he heard. The news of Michael's stroke had hit him hard. A cold shock he hadn't been prepared for. Whatever complicated history they shared, Michael was family and Willow. Willow still mattered more to him than he wanted to admit. He peered through the small window in the door, watching Willow clutch Michael's hand, her face etched with pain, his chest tightened. He wanted to go in to offer comfort, but something held him back. A sense of dread he couldn't quite place. Later that night, after Carly finally stepped out to make phone calls and speak with the doctors again, Willow found herself alone with Michael. The machines hummed quietly around them, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his hand. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I don't know how we got here. I don't know how to fix this." Her other hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach, fingers trembling. "I don't even know how to tell you," she breathed. As if in response, Michael's fingers twitched slightly in her grasp. Willow froze, her heart leaping into her throat. "Michael," she whispered urgently, lifting her head. She watched his face, searching for any sign of movement, but nothing followed. The monitor continued its steady rhythm. Indifferent to her hope, she let out a shaky breath, disappointment and relief colliding inside her. If he woke up now, if he looked at her with those trusting eyes, how could she possibly lie to him? And how could she possibly tell the truth? The next morning brought no miracle. Michael remained unconscious, though the doctor said his condition had stabilized slightly. It was enough to keep everyone hanging on, hopeful but terrified. Word spread quickly through Port Charles. Visitors came and went. Sunny, Dante, Sasha, even Nina, hovering awkwardly in the doorway. Her concern genuine despite the complicated relationship she shared with Willow. Each one brought prayers, encouragement, and questions Willow couldn't answer. Drew returned that afternoon, this time stepping inside the room. Willow looked up when she sensed his presence, her breath catching at the sight of him. Their eyes locked and for a moment everything else faded away. "I heard what happened," Drew said quietly. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you," Willow replied, her voice barely steady. She glanced at Michael, then back at Drew. The air between them felt heavy, charged with things unsaid. Drew shifted uncomfortably. "How is he still unconscious?" Willow said, "They say it's a waiting game." Drew nodded, jaw tight. He stepped closer to the bed, looking at Michael with a complicated mix of concern and guilt. "If there's anything I can do," Willow hesitated. Her instinct was to push him away, to keep him as far from this mess as possible. But another part of her, the part that was terrified and alone, wanted to lean on him just for a moment. "There is something," she said softly, surprising herself. Drew turned to her, eyes searching her face. "What is it?" Her throat closed up. The words pressed against her chest, desperate to escape, but fear held them back. "Not here. Not now." Not with Michael lying between them, vulnerable and unaware. She shook her head. I do not know. I'm overwhelmed. Drew nodded, understanding more than she realized. I get it, he said gently. I'll be here. Whatever you need. As he left, Willow felt the walls closing in around her. The lie, or rather the truth she was hiding, was already shaping everything, and she hadn't even spoken it aloud yet. Days passed in a blur. Willow barely slept, barely ate. Her pregnancy symptoms worsened, the nausea constant, her emotions raw and unpredictable. She told herself it was stress, that anyone in her position would feel this way, but deep down she knew it was more than that. One morning, a nurse approached her quietly. Willow, the doctor would like to speak with you. Fear shot through her. She followed the nurse down the hall, her heart pounding. The obstetrician's office smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender, a cruel reminder of the life growing inside her. While Michael's hung in the balance, the doctor smiled kindly. We ran some routine tests, she said. Everything looks good. You're about 8 weeks along, 2 weeks. The number echoed in Willow's mind, solidifying what she already knew. The timing confirmed it. There was no more room for denial. Your stress levels are very high, the doctor continued. For your health and the baby's, you need to take care of yourself, baby. Willow nodded numbly and left the office, her hands shaking. In the hallway, she nearly collided with Drew. Hey, he said quickly, steadying her. Are you all right? Something in her face must have given her away. Drew's expression shifted, concern deepening. Willow, what's going on? She looked around, then grabbed his arm, pulling him into an empty conference room. The door clicked shut behind them, sealing them in. I'm pregnant, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Drew's eyes widened. For a split second, confusion crossed his face. Then, understanding dawned slow and devastating. Oh, he breathed. Willow. Tears spilled over. Unstoppable. It's yours, she whispered. I know it is the timing. There's no denying it. Drew ran a hand through his hair, shock and guilt wearing inside him. Michael doesn't know. No, Willow said, shaking her head. And I don't know how to tell him. Not now. Not when he's like this. Drew looked toward the door, toward Michael's room just down the hall. This is bad, he said quietly. He's my brother. I know, Willow sobbed. I understand and I hate myself for it. Drew stepped closer, his voice low. We didn't plan this, but we can't pretend it didn't happen. She hugged herself as if trying to hold herself together. What if he never wakes up? What if he does? And this breaks him. Drew didn't have an answer. All he could do was stand there, the weight of their shared mistake pressing down on them both. When Willow returned to Michael's bedside, her heart felt heavier than ever. She watched his chest rise and fall, tears blurring her vision. I don't know how to protect you, she whispered. From me. Outside the room, Carly watched Willow with a sharp intuitive gaze. She'd noticed the changes. The pallor, the nausea, the way Willow kept pressing a hand to her stomach. A terrible suspicion began to form. One Carly had learned never to ignore. If the truth came out now, it would shatter everything. But in Port Charles, secrets had a way of surfacing at the worst possible moment. And as Michael lay unconscious, caught between life and death, the future of his marriage and his family hung by a fragile, dangerous thread.